I I believe some of you may be still in your commute from school to back home, or maybe somewhere right here is a pretty lovely evening where I am. I am in Gujarat at the moment, and it's raining, and I feel like stepping out in the rain for my run again this evening. But yet I'm not stepping out. I'm right here with all of you, 100 plus of us. Second, I think what we are getting on together on this journey, the quality movement journey that ExcelOne calls it, it's a pure choice. We were not compelled to make this choice, right? As in, I remember when we originally signed up for this, it was the year 2018-19, when Dr. Senthil Kumaran and Stones to Milestones group together started persuading OECD that it's high time that you come to India with PISA for schools. And it took us about 5 years to bring them to the country. And in these 5 years, we had COVID in between. And in these 5 years, we had a new education policy come in between. And we all know that the new education policy is actually coming at such a wonderful timing for all the schools on this call right now who have signed up for PISA for schools. It seems like we were visionaries when we started approaching OECD pre-COVID to now see post-COVID what our new education policy also expects us to do. But is it required now? Not necessarily. We can wait for the policymakers to come up with more guidance. Some of us are CBSE schools who have done a couple of rounds of SAFL examination. Some of us have been doing competency-based assessment even before NEP started talking about. But independent of anything, I think all of us in this room are choice makers. All of us in this room are the ones who set the vision and roadmap, and are not the ones who need to be handed over a vision and roadmap. Otherwise, I can tell you, your school, you as a school leader or a coordinator or a teacher would not be this evening with us on this call. And it's not just the first of these calls. I'm sure some of you have been attending each and every session since January 2023, when PISA for schools was officially launched in India. If I can just do a quick raise of hands, the Zoom hand, of how many of you were actually part of the Jan 2023 School Excellence Yatra that we did across 5 cities. I was there. Dr. Senthil was there. Okay. I can see few hands. Because everyone's video was not on, I said, okay, let's do a raise of hands. So I'm assuming some of us have been walking this journey since January of 2023 together. And if we were to just take one half a day session together, all of us together, saying let's half a day get together and consolidate all that we have learned together in this journey since January 2023 to now, half a day would not be, I think half a day would not be enough for us to bring all of it together. And right now, as we all know, we have not even begun the journey. We have not even had the first test cycle experience, right? And I'm excited and looking forward to November, because we together, all of us, 100 plus schools, are writing history for India. Are writing history because we are signing up for a global benchmarking assessment, which no one has compelled us to do. We have made a choice to test ourselves, to benchmark ourselves against the best across the world. And after that stage, I'm sure you have been aware what more is going to unfold, wherein we are going to be part of community, a part of a global community of peer group, wherein together we will learn, share, and keep growing, benchmarking not just to the next school in our city, which we look up to, but schools across the world. So once again, a heartfelt welcome and congratulations to all of you who have signed up for PISA for School Cycle 1. I'm Kavish Gadia. Some of you may have met. We may have met in my earlier work that I've done. I was part of Stones to Milestones team since the year 2008. It's been short yet an intense journey so far. And this is third initiative by Stones to Milestones in the last 16 years. And I think this is one of the most powerful mission that the organization has ever taken up. I also feel that a lot of us who have understood the importance of PISA for schools and signed up have also got an equal responsibility. And I'm going to leave that responsibility with all of you to inform and educate our friends and fellow educators in the country who may not be even aware of PISA for schools. Except for the first School Excellence Yatra that we held in January and February, we haven't yet announced anything in public domain. So I think all of us collectively, 100 odd schools who are together in this journey so far, we have a collective responsibility to educate and let other school leaders, like-minded school leaders, who would later regret, "Arey, mujhe bataya kyun nahi? You should have told me." I think we still have that window to bringing some of those school leaders onto this wonderful journey, because this journey has just begun. If you have any such school leader, please introduce any of us, Komal, Sonika, Dr. Senthil, me, whoever you know in the organization would be happy to have a one-on-one chat with your friends and fellow educators. I know all of you are excited about what we are unfolding this evening on leveraging data, which we are going to get access to through PISA for schools. And there is so much more. And I hope all of you have marked your calendars for the next 5 sessions, which are coming in the next few weeks for each of you. And very soon, we'll be meeting all of you at your school as we unfold PISA for Schools experience. Without taking much of your precious time with my co-founder and colleague, Dr. Senthil Kumaran, I would like to hand it over to him. And as much as you are here to learn, I'm looking forward to learn from him again this evening. Welcome, sir, once again.
Thank you, Kavish, and thank you, fellow educators across the country. And I think it's again my responsibility today to talk on something which is very important in terms of what Kavish just said, data. More than data, every time when I try to look back on my own journey and keep reminding myself what is that I am supposed to do, what is that I have been trying to work on. I still remember in my earlier avatar, that is at CII, when we started a small initiative and our chairman, Mr. K. Narsim Shenoy, he had come in and he spoke to the school principals and he asked them a very simple question: who is your customer? Who is your customer? And I think many people said that, who came from government said government of India or the management who is there. So the focus, the prime focus, which is very important, is that student, the child in my classroom, particularly that particular child in my classroom who is sitting in the last row, not getting attention as required in terms of what he or she must be doing. And one more thing which is very interesting during that particular time, which came out also, was that why are we trying to talk about data? Why are we trying to talk about numbers? And I think COVID taught us. COVID taught us one thing very, very clearly, that numbers are very important. As soon as we got impacted or affected by COVID, and we called up our relatives or friends and said, "Mere ko COVID ho gaya, I got COVID." The first answer which came in on the other side, "What is your score?" And when people were asking about your score, and then they said 85, 90, 95, you always also heard, along with this particular number, something very, very interesting, which was a comment: go to a doctor, go to a hospital, go to somebody else, and then do this. And whoever went through that particular journey became expert with that particular data and started talking much about it. And I think this is something which is very important in terms of data. And I always say this particular example, the people who have attended in my sessions in the past, I always say that how is that a preacher who is standing and is able to control or able to manage 5,000 people in a huge auditorium or in a ground by just making simple comments in the particular language, and he gets emotionally connected to those 5,000 people, which we are not able to get connected. And where exactly do we lose? And why do we lose when we have only 30, 40 children in our classroom and we are not emotionally able to get connected? That's why one standard comment which keeps coming from school, teachers across the country is, अब वो जमाना ना रहा. Those days, we had teachers like this, the students were like this, and today students are not able to. So what is that particular missing link in terms of getting emotionally connected to the child? Like people in corporate say, people don't resign companies, people resign because of their bosses. In the same way, in schools, the students, particularly the students, they like a subject only because of the teacher, not because of the subject the teacher is loved. And that's where each one of us have a nickname. Each one of us sitting in this particular forum is very clearly defined at the staff room or at the classroom by the child based on that emotional connect, what we were able to establish with that particular child or that particular student in our classroom. One more thing, particularly coming up on today's topic, we always try to compare ourselves with somebody else, and immediately we withdraw by this particular comment saying that is city. We are a tier 2 city, tier 3 city. We don't have good teachers. We don't have English. We don't have this. We don't have that. And as soon as when I give them an example of something which is closer to their own school, they say that school has a history of 30 years. We are just in first 7 years. Then when I give an example of similar in the subject itself, then they say, no, that teacher particular, you compare other. So automatically what happens, we try to shy away whenever somebody throws what? An example or a situation, trying to say that, look at this particular person, and immediately the other person says, this will not work, this will work in this particular way. And I think this is something very, very important, which we really need to look at it. And many times, we have been only looking at the 10th and 12th marks. And as soon as 10th and 12th marks come in, thankfully, now digi lockers have come in, so the marks are straight away getting into it. Otherwise, the schools were taking up the marks, ki pass wale school A ka kya hua, school B what happened, school C what happened, and what school D what happened. And what we try to always play around with, one very important thing in this whole game, is that we started always looking at what was comfortable to us. It was like, I always give this example when it comes to benchmarking. It is something like going to a buffet and trying to pick up the things what you like rather than what is prepared well by the chef. Because we decide a complete buffet based on what we like, not what others also like in that particular situation. So I think it's very important that today when we are going to talk on a very, very important topic called as benchmarking. And let me take you through this particular session with some specific examples. I'll spend a little bit more on key stage assessment, which has already been conducted by CBSE in terms of 5 and 8. 3 still to be done. We are waiting when that will be done, and a gamify, because it has to be a game-based, technology enabled. So we are still waiting for that. But what is very important is that 3, 5 and 8 assessments, first cycle over, second cycle of shuffle over. But has it impacted my APP, annual pedagogical plan? Because this particular data, whatever I am trying to talk about, whether it is giving me that particular due credit, what I have taken effort for. And I think all my co-teachers or co-learners who are there in this particular session will surely agree with me that when we were in 0 to 7 years of, our school was 0 to 7 years of age. And when the first 10th board came in or 12th board came in, immediately we said, these kids were not our students. They never studied with us. You look at the first batch, which is going to come after 5 years, you can't be saying this. And somewhere we are very, very, comfortable. Somewhere we are very, very comfortable on this particular point. What particular point we are very, very comfortable? We are comfortable with one particular point. Ki karm karo, phal ki chinta mat karo. Do whatever you can do better and don't worry about the result. But it is not like that. Every karma should give you a result. Every practice must give you some result. Every practice must give you some performance. And this performance should go back and reflect on your karma or your practice. But we are not able to establish these kind of correlations. And take example, forget about academics. You come out of academics when we try to talk about an inter-school competition. And there is one particular school which is every time winning in debate. Every time we're winning in debate. The first question when the principal or somebody from the school calls up this particular staff who has traveled with the kids to that other school, and then they say, sir, no, that S2M school is always like this, or ABC school is like this. We always complain that there is because of certain other parameters which are beyond my control, the results have not come. How many times did we actually, sit down as a school on looking at one particular practice beyond cognitive areas in terms of sports, in terms of, co-curricular activities, what we are trying to do? Did we ever come back and look at the script or the key points given by us or by the child, which we tutored that particular child for that particular competition? Then it becomes very, very challenging. The second important thing is that we prepare with some things and we go ratta maro and go there. We memorize something, rote learn for a competition, go deliver. And suddenly the organizers decide to change the topic. Then you should see how furious we become and say that, no, this is not possible. How can you change the topic in the last moment? No. Whether we have given the right skills for that particular child to work on, most important thing, that to think, create himself, herself. And when himself, herself is able to create, I think any topic you give it to that particular child, he should be able to talk for or against. He should be able to give his perspectives on that particular area. Another wonderful area, please go back and reflect. Why I'm giving you beyond cognitive? Because it's very important that we always, when we say benchmarking, we always worry only about cognitive areas, because there is a data which is available with us and we are able to work on it. I'll show you how all this works. And the third area is, take example of hockey. What is this hockey part of it? Indian hockey, few years back, whenever they used to win or lose, nobody used to do any analysis. But when technology came in, when TV started coming in and the games were shown us live, immediately after that particular game, the Dhanraj Pillai, the Indian hockey captain, was called in the corner and always asked this particular question: why do you think you won today, or why did you think you lost today? And this, I'm moving away from cricket. I'm not using intentionally a cricket example, because all of us know about cricket. The third empire, what is being spoken about, the 1 hour after the event, what happens, I'm not talking about. I'm only talking about how slowly, even in a game where the whole country is watching our hockey team, Mr. Dhanraj Pillai was made to answer this particular question. What was not right in our team, that why we lost this particular game? In the same way, now, slowly start trying to look at this particular practice into our school practices. Here today, we are only talking about cognitive, but I would like you to go beyond. Because when we try to talk about PISA for school, we are talking about SEL, socio-emotional learning, which is a very, very important component in today's learning process. And if our schools are not equipped sufficiently with SEL, I can say that we are not doing the right job. And this is where let's get into the session, trying to understand, and you can stop me at the end. I'll surely give you around 15-20 minutes to ask questions. And then we will try to understand that, are we doing the right thing? If we are doing the right thing, obviously we should be able to get some of the thought process. Let me start sharing my presentation. Are you able to see my presentation, Kavish?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. So let's get into the session. The second session, benchmarking in our schools, the need and the process. Because many a times and this is one of the most abused term, according to me, in schools, without even understanding, appreciating that particular word, what benchmark basically means. But before starting this session, some housekeeping. I hope that you're carrying your writing pen and pad. Your mic is on mute mode. Whoever is coming in, we request you to please put your mic on mute so that the others also and you also get the maximum benefit out of it. Keep your cameras on when you're asking questions. Otherwise, if you have a bandwidth challenge, we would request you to please, close it, start putting the questions. As soon as I make a comment or anything, specific, please start asking the questions. I will take all the questions if possible during the session or at the end of the session. And if there are any specific questions, please put it to Komal or Komal or Kavish, then we will try to take those questions separately. Or if there is a power cut, right now, I traveled all the way from Bangalore. Luckily that I was able to reach Kavarda in Chhattisgarh. And this is almost like 2.5 hours. Even if I have to see a railway station, I have to travel 2.5 hours to basically see nearest railway station. So I'm far away from in one of, Chhattisgarh suburb. I should not say suburb, it's around 120 kilometers to be precise. If internet falls, just hold on for some time. I'm in a school right now, and the team is working with me to make sure that this program goes on very well. So thanks to Abhyuday School Kavardha, which is kind of, the whole team is waiting after the school hours just to make sure that all of you get the right benefit out of it. Same meeting ID, same part. But most important, as comment which I keep saying, is get shameless for learning. There is nothing called, even if I don't know anything, I will say, I don't know. Next session, I'll come and answer this particular question, or I will send me a message privately. I'll find the answer and I'll come back to you. So there is nothing specific which needs to be done. But today, whenever we try to talk about a topic like benchmark, this is how people think what a benchmark means. You put a bench and you write mark on it, then it becomes a benchmark. Or you put a bench, put a line around it, it becomes a benchmark. No. This is not benchmark at all. And whenever I use the word benchmark, immediately people say, oh, it is all about competition. No, it is not about competition. It is about competitiveness. And competition is different from competitiveness. Comparing yourself, who is better than you in the comparable position, in the comparable environment, then only you can call that particular school as comparable schools. You can't compare. You are sitting in one particular city or one particular metro, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 city. You don't have to worry about it. You have to always identify a comparable situation. And that's where assessments like PISA are very, very important, which give you the data not only at your state, at the country, but at the international level. And we have been always hearing this particular comment again and again, how that particular data is going to be important. And you heard Kavish saying one very important thing, that as soon as this assessment cycle gets over, you will become part of a global community and you can start posting about your question in that particular community and keep getting the answers, not only from us from India, but across the globe, who think that they have a similar kind of a challenge, And that is where it is very important for us to identify right benchmark, right parameter, right data. And if you don't have all this, it will not work. But whenever I talk about benchmarking, this is the answer which people give me. This is the answer which people are trying to fudge me with. They always say, we are already doing, sir, we are already doing, sir, we are already doing for so many years, sir. No, you are trying to camouflage, you are trying to create something which is artificial, trying to cover up something which is very, very, very important for all of us to understand. And this is where, when we try to talk about benchmarking, we really need to understand and remove some of the myths which we are carrying around us. The first and the foremost thing is, people think benchmarking is for a short-term gain. No. If a school is doing well closer to your school and which has better performance in maths, science, Hindi, English, or in co-curricular activities, by just hiring that particular teacher in your institution, you will not be able to do anything. It will not give you the result. You're actually killing the teacher, you're killing that particular institution, which is along with this. Because that particular person, that particular individual who was working in a given environment was able to do certain practices because of the policies which were existing in that particular institution. So please understand, it is not a short-term gain. People think it's the short-term thing and quickly we should be able to get the results. It is not so. It is not so. The second important thing is that whenever we try to talk about benchmarking, it is always competition. Please remember the word. There is a difference between competitiveness and competition. Today, the exercise what we are doing with all of you is all about competitiveness. It's all about competitiveness. No control C, control V of one school practice will work in another school. Please understand. You may start doing a control C with a control R and a control V and control S in your own institution through a policy. It is not going to give you the desired result. So people normally think that benchmarking is all about stress. No, it's not about stress. The third thing is, as soon as we say compare with other schools, they say no. I know much better. At last 20 years, I have been teaching English, I have been teaching social science, I have been teaching maths, I have been teaching science, and I don't want to do anything. No. So the first answer is, whenever we are expected to compare ourselves with somebody, we always say no. And there is a lot of initial inertia because we are not willing to accept there is something which is gap in my own perspective. The fourth area is also perspectives. I know that all of us who have traveled to, see Taj Mahal, or the people who have gone to Aurangabad, at least there is one more Taj replica which is available there, would have tried this experiment there. It is all about the perspective, whether you are holding the Taj from its tip on the top, or whether you have played with the technology to get that kind of out. And I still remember when I was in Agra and we went, I think this photograph still exists at my home when I was in, I think on 6th standard. So I hold this. But everyone who looks at Taj looks at it from different perspective. So benchmarking is also something very different. There are two different perspectives we really need to understand. The context in which this was created, the context in which you are referring to. You can say Taj Mahal meri ungliyon ke niche. That's one particular perspective. But somebody would sit down in front of Taj and take a photograph and say, oh, this is a love of symbol, this is a symbol of love. And, all those different perspectives will come in. So when we try to talk about benchmarking, different people use differently. And today my effort is going to be helping you to understand how in your own core academic area, how exactly can we implement this. As I said earlier, you can't do a control C, control V. If a school maths department is doing well, you may be able to hire all the maths teacher and put them into your school. But if your policies and your environment is not right, you can't do control C. So benchmarking is not about control C, control V. If you don't know how you are making it, you will not be able to say how the things have to be done. I think most of the people who are here in the session, I know that what Sanjeev Kapoor says or any of the chef says in the cookery show, and he or she says, whoever is the chef, he or she says very clearly, namak swad anusar, salt as per taste. So this is where what happens, the practice has to be contextualized to an environment where exactly we are connected with it. Other people also say that all of us know about pH paper. Then people say, no, all schools are different. When you try to take them through the test, the results will be different. Then how can we have the benchmarking happening? No, benchmarking can be done. How it can be done, we'll discuss about it. Some people also say that how can you compare an apple to apple or apple to orange? How can you compare? You cannot compare. They have all the infrastructure. We are in a rural place. How can I compare myself with this? Now, this is where what happens in PISA assessment also, you are only compared to schools of similar nature who have the similar kind of background. That's where there is a student questionnaire. And that particular student questionnaire, that particular that particular environment is something very important. So how can we compare two students and two other things? Here there is a student questionnaire. Student is also going to answer the questions, and based on that particular question, the comparison also happens in terms of social emotional learning and all other parameters. And I'll show you a glimpse of that when we get into. Many a times we fudge with data also like this. I don't know how many of you have seen the Parak report cards which have already come into the market. And when we try to talk about the 358 HPC for different levels, I'm not very sure how many of us have actually gone and looked at it. The Parak recommendation, if you are not there, please send me a thing. I'll share the whole document with you. What is the recommendation by the Parak? That's a national body for bringing in commonality or similarity or equivalency in all the boards. When they are trying to recommend 9, 10, 11, 12, at least the high school teachers can take a little respite, that there will be a percentage of score which will be helpful for the child to get the last 4 years, the 12th marks as such. And there is a component of internal and external, so summative and formative percentages are also been very, very clearly been done. And I can tell you, some other day we will surely talk in one of my sessions. We'll also talk about HPC some other time, not today, because today's agenda is all about benchmarking. So when we try to talk about the data, this is how the data basically comes in. These are some of the standard myths which we have about benchmarking. So whenever we try to talk about benchmarking, the first question as a senior leadership team of your school or as the in charge of that particular school, how effective is our school? How effective is our school and its practices? Many a times we are not able to answer this particular question. And as soon as somebody says, we always react to by saying one particular comment very, very clearly. Our students have got admission into IITs, NEET, JEE, foreign universities. We use parameters which are purely not under our control. Which are not under our control. I'm making it very clear. We are not talking about achievement of learning outcomes. We are not talking about achievement of learning outcomes. We are only talking about scores based on an assessment by a board which is being done, and we try to take a credit. I don't know whether I should take the credit or the tuition center who is outside the school should be given the credit. And this is where the challenge comes in. This is where the challenge comes in. So how do we work on it? How do we try to understand? I think this is where it is very, very important. You should ask these particular questions to yourself. These are some of the few questions we should ask ourselves. Whether the processes, whether it is key or support processes, whether they are defined with measurement in our campus. Ask this question to yourself. First, process, key, and support are defined and measured. Second, integrated and interrelated processes are defined, documented as a system. Whether we have made this as a system and it is known to everybody. Every staff in my school knows what is the responsibility in which particular avatar or roles that they are playing. I may be an English teacher, but when I become class teacher, my responsibilities are different. When I become a club in charge or coordinator, my responsibilities changes. That means people should know what are the different avatars and what are the responsibilities which are connected to this particular practices. Not only this, all these processes are very clearly defined by policies. Many times we have written policies, which I have said in one of my earlier sessions, Ashwathama died. That's all is the policy. If somebody questions me, I play to the gallery as the question is being asked. And this is where I think it's very important when you're trying to talk about academic practices, it should be supported sufficiently by the policies. If they're not supported by the policies, this process will see natural death over a period of time. As soon as the teacher exits out of the campus, the policy will see that particular practice will see naturally going down. When I go and do sessions with different schools and I keep challenging schools, tell me about one particular practice. Like when I say a practice, immediately say, sir, we are already doing it, sir. For so many years, we have been doing it, sir. But now it is stopped. Why did it stop? Because the person who was there, he retired and went. Now, retirement cannot be an excuse for a school to basically talk about very, very specifically that this doesn't happen in this particular way. So we really need to understand that processes must be supported by the policies. Next, data-based improvement. That means look at the first bullet point and this bullet point, you will be able to understand. That means it says very, very clearly that you must have data. You must have data, and data for every process can be in 5 areas: productivity, quality, time, cost, stakeholder satisfaction. Again, I'm repeating PQTCSS. Productivity, quality, time, cost, stakeholder satisfaction. If you don't have data on these 5 areas for every practice, you cannot measure a process. We will talk some other day on that, but I'm hinting that data is very important. Now, when you try to look at it, the last point comes in. Whether what is the management reviewing? Is it only reviewing the academic results, or is it also reviewing the impact of these practices in various results, what we are measuring? And this is where, when we try to talk about benchmarking, we really need to understand, if all these elements are not there, I don't know how are you doing benchmarking. If you have some good mantra without this to be done, then please come back to me. I'll be happy to become your Shishya for a day to learn from you how exactly you are able to do. If you don't have these practices, this is the flow of these questions. If you don't have an answer and you're still doing, I really need to kind of look at it. And this is where I always say the performance cannot come in automatically. The performance is directly connected to the practice. Many schools say our practices are good, but our performance is not, we are not getting the performances. That means there is a gap in your practice. There is one more school which is closer to your school. They are not doing these practices, but they are getting results. They are getting only short-term results minded. They're only getting a short-term result. And when you try to talk about the short-term results, that means they are using some unethical methods, practices to get those results. Because what I personally believe, that karma must get you the phal. That is nothing but that particular point. Whatever karma you do, that much result only you will get, because every practice gives the desired result. And if it is not there, it doesn't work. And just to help you to understand, when we try to talk about school excellence journey per se as such, we really need to understand people is equal to performances. It's not like that. People, if you have the best of people, I'm sure you will not be able to get the results until unless there is a clearly defined processes. That's where people should know what are the riti rivaj, what are the customs conventions, what are the practices, what are the processes to give you the performance. And if that is not given, it doesn't work. To make sure that this is being done by everybody in the institution, we need a policy. We need a policy. People-related policy, practices, process practices-related policies. And then only we can get sustained performance towards achieving whatever we are trying to. Let's see. That's something which is very important to be seen. Not only this, we also really need to look at it. All policies will give you some kind of data. That means whether your performance, process data, people data, if it is not there, you will never be able to move into that excellence journey. You are doing a journey without understanding your effectiveness. And this is where it is very important that we really need some kind of a benchmarking. And for benchmarking, what are the two elements important? I'll share in next couple of slides. Now, all this helps us to define something called as benchmark. Again, I am saying measuring and comparing performance of schools against established standards or peers. Now, if you just want to add anything, I would like you to request you to add something. Performance of comparable schools. Intentionally, I have not given that particular comparable schools. You can't compare yourself with some other school which you don't even know the background of that particular schools. That's where comparable schools play a very, very important role out here. And people always say Apple always has to be benchmarked to another Apple. Yes, you can always do this, but how can we do something? I was there with one of my good friend last week in one of the hotels. And the hotel, we had to wait for almost around 20-25 minutes. And this friend, this academic friend of mine, who's from the academic community, he said, Senthil, how can we get such a rush in our schools that people have to wait for 25 minutes to go and sit in that particular chair to get certain things? So what are the practices which we should follow to make sure that the rush is, we are able to create so much of interest, we are able to give that kind of a quality that people are willing to wait for 20 to 25 minutes to experience this particular food, which can be available anywhere, but in this particular place. That means we can actually start looking at how the comparison can happen. Now, one example before we move to the next slide. When I went first time to the Japan, and somebody gave me a simple example, they said that in a manufacturing company, they give 36 suggestions is given by every employee every year. 36 suggestions, which is not like keep the glass from right hand side to left hand side is not a suggestion, please. Let me make it very, very clear. 36 suggestions. Now, I was seriously thinking, हमारे स्कूलों में we have something called as a suggestion box, but which is nothing but an elevated dustbin, because hardly people know put something inside that. And how do we get suggestion from the suggestion box? We really need to go back and so can we compare ourselves with that industry? We should start looking at it. Do we have policies that if somebody is giving a suggestion, are we giving them some kind of a recognition? So we can compare apple to oranges, provided we understand that this is going to impact my institution in the long run. And that's where the purpose of my institution plays a very, very important role. So why are we trying to talk about? Three simple things. One, benchmarking will enhance the quality of your school. When I'm trying to talk about quality, you need to look at two things. What are the two things? One, you are supposed to look at the teaching learning effectiveness. Second, accountability and transparency across levels. What it basically means that I am going to go back and make sure, that I am responsible for this results. And it will bring in transparency at every level. That it is because of me, the overall class grades have come down. It is because of my contribution, because I have not been available to the students. I have not done personalized learning for the student. I think the overall impact is. So that means the people who are responsible must be able to kind of work on it. The second important thing, why are we trying to talk about is competitiveness. You can add state also to it. I'm okay with that. Nationally, how I'm performing, globally, how I'm performing. That means we empower our students to be ready. If you open the NEP document, it very clearly says 2030, the actual result and impact will be visible. That means what? We are not talking about 2030. And if you try to look at in India, we are trying to talk about net zero. We are not talking today. We are talking about 2070. India will become net zero in carbon emission. But what is the good sign that we are trying to talk about? There are two airports in India, Bangalore and Delhi. They have already become net zero in carbon emissions through the practices. That means each one of these airports will start, each one of the schools will start, and then we should move towards it. And this is where I'm saying many of us are using and abusing something called as SDG. SDG. I'm not getting into it, but I want you to only go back and whether all that what the SDG expects us to do, Sustainable Development Goals, just putting the title in the lesson plan is not going to help you. How are you ingraining those practices to become sustainable in your school practices is important. And this is where what will happen, it will make that our students are comparable to a Finnish students, to Korean students, to Singapore, to to Middle East, to Europe, to US, anywhere, we can actually start talking about it. And it was very, very heartwarming for me when I went first time to Paris last year, January, when I was in Paris for the 10th anniversary for PISA for schools. And when I met different companies, national service providers, I think it was very, very interesting for me. It was very, very interesting for me to see this particular point that most of the country said that we have Indian students in our schools and their performance is fantastic. So that gave me the courage, that gave me the courage that hum kuch kar sakte hain. As a community, which is called as the Indian school community, when Indians are going abroad and doing very well, then I think you and I can surely empower each other and make sure that our children do well in PISA for school assessments. And the third important thing is that most of the things will be based on data, not by somebody's, soch. or somebody's thinking process. Okay, this is the way this has to be done. No, we are not talking about emotions. We are talking about numbers. And when we are trying to talk about numbers, I think it's very important for us to improvise. And one example, I'm going to take it a little detail. All of us have heard about school report card, but many people were thinking, what is the school report card? School report card is nothing but the SAFL, structured assessment for analyzing learning, which is very, very critical and important for all of us to understand. Now, what is this SAFL, which has been done already for CBSE schools? Very soon, other state governments and boards also, council, SISKI will start. The other state governments also will start, but they may not have the name same as SAFL, but they may have some other name. But all of them are going to do something called as structured assessment for analyzing the learning in our affiliated schools. 358, which is nothing but key stage assessment, which I was talking about. Now let's look at this particular image, because every time I try to come back to this image, because this is publicly available document. This publicly available document, and I have used this publicly available document where I have started trying to look at this particular data point, trying to understand where exactly we are. I still remember when the SAFL results were given, there was one page, 1 or 3 page circular also came from CBSE, which said, please develop an action plan and let us know what action plan is. According to me, you need not submit there, but your APP must have some changes. Annual pedagogical plans must have some changes. It is very easy to say. When I looked at this particular school, I was talking to this particular school. They said, sir, look at our performance. Below basics, our school, the topmost is our school. Look at the results. We are very small. The national average is around 19.63. In the state itself, it is 16.46. They were comparing like this, and they're saying that we were in the region itself, we are much better, sir. Look at how many people are below, and look at the total 17.32, which is the highest at the state level, at the region level, at the national level. Everywhere you try to look at, that is our performance is higher. So when people were giving me this thing, I said, all this looks very, very good when you're trying to benchmark yourself. But have you benchmarked internally? Have you looked at how did you get this particular result? How did you get the result? And when we are trying to talk about result, this is for grade 5. And I'm taking a little deep dive into grade 5 again, because this is the grade 5 actual grade where the assessment happened. And my request, which I said in my earlier sessions also, start working on cumulative assessment practices. Don't try to give only one test in one monthly test, weekly test. Don't do it like that. Try to take the cumulative learning also of the child to go back. Why I'm saying that, you can look at this particular image, and now this is a third grade, which is the first thing which I have shown. This is third grade, and this is second standard. Now, most of the schools have not read these two, and the last column, many schools have not bothered to look at it. My request to you is that don't look at like this. Look at like this, then you will be able to appreciate. 70, usse pehle 72 and 81. That means in this grade, the learning of the child is 70%. 70% of, sorry, the 70% of the students in my school are able to answer for the same grade. But look at on the third, competency, where they are trying to talk about, only 29% are able to answer this particular point. Now, what is very important out here? What is very important out here? Please look at this now. The child is also able to perform more than that particular grade, what he is able to do it. Now, what does this talk about it? The teacher is not having idea of what he or she is teaching. Or the teacher is very, very aspirational, going beyond what is expected to be achieved in that particular class. And that is something which is very important for all of us to understand. My request to you is that you can't do analysis of it. All of us sitting in this particular room know something called as Bloom's uncle, or I call them as Bloom's uncle. Why I say Bloom's uncle? Because he's going to be playing the major role, all of us. And whenever we have written this LO, I'm not talking about objective, I'm talking about outcomes. Whenever these outcomes have to be written, please start looking at these keywords. In every LO, there is one: knows, understands, recognize, identify, compare, describe, identify, understand, knowing. All this is the key things which you are supposed to. Don't try to, while you're looking at number on this side, try to put it across on the left-hand side in the competency report and go back and change to training action plan based on what is missing here, what competencies we are not able to build, and what particular level. So whatever is coming on the right hand side, you really need to go back and work on it. And this left hand side, all that English what is circled and in the rectangle, whatever has been put, you have, this must be visible in your annual pedagogical plan in APP, which your board expects you to submit at the starting of the academic year. But I don't know what we are submitting. Now, this is exactly what is supposed to be done. Now, this was just a very, very Indian example. And again, when we have done all this, now go back and look at this particular part. We were we were celebrating here, but now try to look at, when we try to look at, oh, there is so much of red mark. Intentionally, I've used red color there just to, because teachers, we love red color, right? So red marks also talks about where we are in the key areas and what is our achievement level. That should be visible. So one of the very important thing is that learning outcome achievement, pick up the NCF document. In the NCF document, the bottom line only talks about the school practices and environment and culture. It only talks about that. And that's where this plays an important role. Now, coming back to the PISA. Now, this is a report copy. If you have not got a copy, please write to our team. Our team will be more than happy to kind of help you to get this report, to share with this particular report. But I'm not going to spend more time. I'm going to spend only two areas. Most of us are looking on the above, outside the box. How is my reading? How is my maths? How is my science? We are not looking at the bottom part of what is the social emotional skill of my children, which is very critical. This will impact my reading, maths, and science. While I showed you on the other side from right to left, now I'm showing you what becomes the foundation for the things, whatever that has been coming into your thing. Now, if I am just a country, I can say, oh, my score is here, Senthil sir, our score is 525, sir. We are better than whatever this sample country is this. We are doing better than that in reading. Maths and science, we are not doing. No, go back and reflect, not only independently, but also start looking how the girls are performing, what is the interest level of students in various subjects. And this data will be collected very, 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 very beautifully with the student questionnaire, which has been designed by the OECD. Now, this is again some of you might have seen this during the presentations, but just wanted to touch how the benchmark part is coming in, because you can see those color things, that is your country. Those band is nothing but what is the confidence interval of your children and where they are against that. And the other OECD is nothing but the global score, which is very important, available for all of you. Now, going forward from here is important is look at the other. It is not only the cognitive area, but also going beyond cognitive area, which is very important for us. What is very, very important for us. And we really need to understand, because there is a direct correlation between this, and this. We have to study all the three. We can't be only looking at selective. As I said, no, if I like what they call dessert, I will only go to the dessert counter. No, I will also try to see that what works for me, and there is a correlation to that. So how do I work on it is very important, because the how part is most of the time gets missed out. So that's why I thought I'll spend some time and I'll show you also one example how a school has done. Identify based on the results, whatever you will get, either you're getting through Senthil or through PISA or through anybody, identify the gaps and areas for improvement. Kahan gaps and what are the area that we try to look at it. And then you have to look at two levels. One, the performance. Second is the pedagogical practices, which is giving us that performance. Performance and the pedagogical practices, which is giving us that particular performance, which is very important. Sorry. The second important is identify and select comparable schools. Identify and select comparable schools. What does it mean? What does it mean, comparable schools? That means you should be able to identify with whom I can compare. And this data will be not available to you on school to school. But OECD, when you're going to get the results, you will get this kind of a band. And in that particular band, where do you fit in? Third, Once you identify the comparables, then collect the data and analyze the areas for improvement. What are they doing? How is their result and our result? What are they doing? And then you're supposed to compare and interpret the results. Based on that, you have to develop long-term and short-term plans. Okay, sorry, that's short-term action plan. I missed out short there. Long and short-term action plan using a 5W1H. What is this 5W1H? Where, what, who, when. All this put together and how we will do it. If you have a clear-cut matrix and you can't have too many things taken, that's where I'm saying take 2 or 3 things and work on it in detail. And once you start working on it, you will be able to see your other practices are also implement the plan. But what is very, very important is monitor and measure the progress. If you don't measure the progress, you have wasted the time of doing all the first steps. So these are the 7 basic steps for doing the monitoring. Let me give you one example of one particular school. Let me give you one example. What is the area identified? Teaching learning practice. I'm just running a little late. Don't worry. I will take up all the questions before I say bye to you. Don't worry about it. Okay. If there are still questions, you can reach out through Komal and to my team, and then I think we will be more than happy to help you out to answer those questions, right? Areas identified. One area which is identified is teaching learning practice. What is the cause? The students have underperformance in math and English of grade 8. What is the reason? Lack of effectiveness of teaching learning practice and assessment practices. Now, what they have identified? They have identified a comparable school with strong inquiry-based learning practices. They have identified a comparable schools which has inquiry-based learning practices, and with that they empowered the students by developing a 5W1H. That means they took up a practice, they mapped a very specific area. You can actually put some more English some other day when we do a workshop. That time we will talk about benchmarking, not today. But just wanted to give you a perspective that it should have some data and some number. And then you will be able to see, once we started implementing this, we were able to see 7% improvement in mathematics and English score as an example. Because this particular case, whatever I'm showing it to you, is specifically on cognitive area. You can take it up in other domain areas also that we can talk sometime. But what is very, very important, again, people, performance is not going to happen. Processes must be there. Again, I'm repeating this for a reason. Policies must be supported. All this policy for doing, to making sure all this is happening properly, we need data. Now, once you have this particular structure with those bullet points, then only the 2 key things are important: process and data. Process and data. If you have these 2 things, then only we can talk about benchmarking. Otherwise, we are trying to fool ourselves. Which is, I don't know how you would like to put it across. But my request to all of you is that please go back and start defining your practices very, very, very clearly. Once you start defining your practices, automatically people will be assigned. And once these 2 will happen, you will know performance. You should have policies because you should start writing policies. And all this must be followed through data. And then only we can have benchmarking. With that particular note, how do we make it happen in my school? That's a question which many people will ask. First, have a clear purpose. Why are you doing this particular activity? Why are you doing the activity? We are not benchmarking because last 2 years, our English score or math score or science score has come down. It is not that particular reason. We need a very clear purpose that we are doing, that every child in my school will be able to achieve the learning outcomes, what we have aspired for, or what has been defined as per National Curriculum Framework. And then we are supposed to align that. That is purpose number 1. 2, if it is only Khana Puri, which many of us are trying to do, particularly with APP, particularly with post-shuffle, action points, or any of those Olympiad examinations, what are being conducted, what do? We get some medals, we clap, We put some what you call gold medal, silver medal, this medal, that medal, and we forget about it. How many times Olympiad results are getting discussed in our school departmental meetings or senior leadership meeting? If that gets measured, automatically the purpose is very clear. The second point, are we engaging while doing the benchmarking? You need all stakeholders to be engaged. The student, the teacher, the parent, everybody has to be communicated that we are doing this particular activity. Based on that, you need a CPD. You need a continuous professional development. You can't say I will do annually one training program and people will forget. No, you need CPD to be done on those identified areas of improvement as well as on benchmarking itself, so that your process becomes very, very robust. For so much of data, you will surely require technology. You will surely require technology. Identify a good technology tool. Identify a good technology tool which can help you to compare within the system, outside the system, whether it is internal benchmarking or external benchmarking. If you want to say in my school, English, where exactly is the problem? First 5 years, 3 years, 3 years or 4 years. Otherwise, the blame game will continue. 12th mein marks nahi aaye, ask the 10th teacher. 10th, you have not got the marks, ask the 6th teacher. 5th teacher, pre-primary, and then say the numeracy and literacy was not taught properly to the child in the preschool. No. You cannot make Janata statement. And that is where we need technology. And finally, for all this, if the school leadership team is not committed, you are only doing a ritual. Let me make it very, very clear. This has to be reminded by unless the boss of the institution is not committed for the improvement or for the excellence, this exercise will become futile. Because the person who is doing one more activity, and suddenly this particular team in the school will be given one name. And you will be called as B coordinator. What is B coordinator? Benchmark coordinator. You will have one more committee, and this committee coordinator, you will be able to kind of look at it. Now, please understand that these are the things which are very, very important for making the change happen. And why we are doing this particular exercise, we want to make sure that Indian schools become globally competitive. And right from my first session, I've been using this particular image only for one particular purpose, that I understand if our students have global competency, if our students need to have, we need quality education, we need global, comparisons, we need data, and all this can be done only by the teacher in the classroom. And if you are not going to invest on a teacher, we are not going anywhere. We are doing rituals after rituals. With that particular note, only thing which I can say, thank you very much for joining for today's session. I'm open for the question answer. I'll stop sharing the screen. Just raise your hand. We will call out your name. And I think my team, Sonika and Komal, will be happy.
Whoever has questions, they can raise hand and unmute themselves.
Oh, they can unmute themselves. Fine. Go ahead, please.
Yes,
Let me see. Okay, if any questions, chat box, no. No question.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. In case, because Dr. Senthil and Kavish both are there, apart from the session, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to take it also.
Sure. First question.
Yes, sir. Please.
Yeah. Praveen, you have unmuted. Any question, Praveen?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Senthil, sir.
Yes, Praveen, how are you?
It's very nice to listen to you.
Yes, go ahead.
You have been a wonderful speaker and excellent one. I already listened to a national conference also. So actually, the thing was that I have just one question. You have been very moralistic and ethical things over here, and I'm very happy.
We have to be like that, sir. We have to move towards that if we are not.
Yeah, because we are from the noble profession,
Yes.
so-called, right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I have question, sir, why we have to compare ourselves globally?
Okay.
This is my question.
Yeah. So are you preparing your students only for, you are from Mumbai?
I am from Mumbai,
Okay, 1 minute.
but
Are we
right now I'm
comparing to
working
Maharashtra
I'm
only?
working
Are
in
we giving
Gujarat.
results nationally? How is your result? Are you comparing? Are you comparing as Maharashtra? Are your students only taking care of Mumbai region? Are they going globally? If they have to compete globally, we have to use metrics which are being used globally. And these metrics have not been defined by one or two individuals sitting inside the room. There are more than 35 countries which are, sat down together, brainstormed on it, and then created these frameworks. And if you try to look at it, it is all aligning to 2030 global competency framework, which OECD is talking about.
Yes, sir. I do agree. Everywhere right now in all the schools, we are using the word so-called the term global citizens, as we all are practicing that. And you also said the same thing, that it has become just a practice and ritual. I do agree with that. I do agree with you what you said that. So my question is that only we are trying to make our children for globally perfect, right?
Globally perfect, globally competitive.
Globally competitive. It means we have
Competitive.
competitive. So it means we have to be progressive, not perfect.
Correct. So constantly we need to keep benchmarking ourselves to improve.
Yes, sir. So that's what my question is here once again to you.
Yes.
Then when we are trying to put our people, see, for example, your team is there. So when we are taking the schools along with us right now for PISA and we are making ourselves for competitive in the market of global, do you feel that right now our means it's a general question, sir? Do you feel right now in whole India the schools are coming up as per your
Sir,
research?
I always believe until unless and try to see that how exactly the whole idea is that we are not trying to say that we will try to change everything, but the yatra has to be started with few like-minded people, and we are very happy that you are partner of this particular yatra. And when history of PISA for schools is written, your school name and your name also will be written that you were part of the maiden assessment process in the country. And we appreciate your support, and then we'll see how to get back to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The people like you definitely try to reform and rechange, and we will be the part of with you. Thank you very much, sir, for your right. Good answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Praveen. Go ahead. Okay, there are some questions in the chat box which I saw.
Sir, I have responded to those questions on the chat.
Fine, thank you. Yeah, any more questions?
Yes, sir. I would like to ask.
Yes, Raina Singh, ma'am, go ahead.
Yeah.
And just say
Good
from your
evening, sir.
compare, ma'am, so that will be also helpful for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, it was really very informative. But I would like to ask, like, how well is our current curriculum, Indian curriculum or ICC school I'm from, it is aligned with the skills and competency which is assessed by PISA,
Correct.
particularly in reading, mathematics, sciences.
Ma'am, see, this assessment is done globally for the age group of 15 plus to 16 plus. The people who have completed 10th class only. It is age specific, not board specific.
Okay.
So when we are trying to talk about these changes, and we are very happy that at least new education policy is moving towards that particular direction. If I have been given the chance to say anything, I will say in the same breath, 3, 5, 8 PISA for schools.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Rana Singh. Go ahead. Yes, Anju Venkatesh, please unmute. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Anju.
Sir, I have just one small query. Like we prepare our children for various international Olympiads. So how does, this diagnostic test help the children in future to be, you know, um, approach the pattern of Olympiads?
No.
Like we talk about mathematics Olympiad, different international science Olympiads, but sometimes our students do not fit in that bracket, the type of format. But I think PISA can provide that competency-based format to the students. So does it help them to be a,
Yes.
top ranker in the Olympiads?
Ma'am, I would not like to compare PFS with any other Olympiad per se as such. When the word diagnostic itself very clearly says it is for diagnostic purposes. The purpose itself is very, very clear. Diagnostic. That means I am trying to assess my child, not through my child, I am assessing the effectiveness of my practices, not the child. Child is only the person who has experienced for 15 years with me. 15 saal, the child was experienced with me. He or she, when he or she goes for an assessment, how he performs, based on that, I am improving my practices. So it is the contribution of the child to give you feedback instead of a survey form. Through the assessment, he is giving a feedback how it is to be done. Like one of our friends has said, Shad Khatib has said, Olympiad is not a diagnostic test. No, Olympiad is no. So please don't compare this with any other Olympiads, because we don't want to compare. It is more a diagnostic tool, a assessment for the child's achievement for 15 years of 15 years of schooling. 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, 5. Yeah, 5 plus 6, around 11 years of schooling is something what you are experiencing with the child.
Thank you so much.
Sabah Hussain, please go ahead.
Good evening, Dr. Senthil. It's always
Good
a
evening.
pleasure to hear you, and the way you present things, how lucid you are when you are actually, and our mind's going to overdrive as to, okay, all the things that we need to do, okay, the processes that we need to put in place, what is there and what is not. But one question I have in my mind when you talk about comparable schools, I think it's not very easy for us to get a data about a school with which we can compare. Can PISA for schools help us in that?
That is one of the exercises which will be done as part of this post-assessment activity.
Right, sir. Right. Okay.
And what are the
Fine.
practices which are there of the comparable schools will be part of that. And in that global community, what we are talking, when you are getting connected to the global community, like this, what we have ExcelOne Club right now. This is ExcelOne Club which is doing this activity. We'll also have a global community, a club, where you will become members and you will put across your questions, and the global community will respond to those questions along with the experts.
In fact, Dr. Senthil, if I may add there, one
Sure.
of the sections of the report that you will all receive has a cross section of PISA score against the socio-economic cultural profile of the schools. Let's say if there are 100 schools from India participating, you can actually see not the names of the schools, but the dots on that graph, which are the schools who are in the comparable socio-economical cultural profile, and how have they performed against my school. So that is there, and we can, while Dr. Senthil takes up other questions, I will try to pull out and maybe show that slide right away for you to get a perspective.
I'm showing it. I'm sharing it. Just give me a minute.
Sure. And I think Anju ma'am also had raised her hand.
Yeah, 1 minute. Can you just see this now?
Yes, this is the correct slide. Yes. So if you see this, the gray band is the band in which all the schools who are near your economic, social, cultural profile, and the green band, which you see horizontal band, is indicating the school's performance. So if you look at the cross section of the green and gray band, it'll give you a sense of where does your school sit compared to the other schools on that. So of course, the green dot is your school, and the empty bubbles around are other schools. Of course, you would not know the names of those, but you can see yourself there. This is one of the analysis to give you a perspective on benchmarking with similar looking schools.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Yeah. Any other question? Yes, Shweta Saxena, please go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Shweta.
Good evening, sir. I just wanted to know, in case we are looking at a comparative study of different schools, so in case if a school is doing better than us in performance, will we be able to know the different strategies undertaken by them to perform better?
This is where what we, as you know, this whole assessment.
Because this is how we can help each other?
Sure, that's where this community ExcelOne Club has been created within India as a global community's chota version or Indian version of it, where we would encourage people to kind of keep, exchanging notes on this particular. Right now, what we have been doing at my earlier avatar and the present role is we have been going and studying what Finland has been doing, Singapore has been doing, Korea has been doing when it comes from the global perspective. We may have similar kind of activities within India where we will ask schools to volunteer to exchange those practices and share those practices. That will happen post assessment reports once we get it.
Okay, so that means we will be improving at the national level first,
Correct.
and then
So,
maybe come to the international
I don't
level.
want to use a word like sabka saath. Again, it should not become a politics, but then I wanted to make it very clear that together as a learning community, as professional learning community, we need to cooperate and work together.
Growing and progressing together.
Sure. That's what is the intent. Intent is that.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
The caveat I want to add here is each school will know their report.
Correct.
You will not know the scores or performance of other schools, which, of course, as part of the community, we can share practices, but without knowing how other schools did specifically. There are some group schools here. You have a different advantage because you get a group school report also for all your branches participating, apart from your independent school branch.
Yeah, because we have 5 schools to 15 schools, group, which are also coming in as part and parcel of this particular exercise.
May I ask one more question? In our last session, Komal had said that she'll be sharing the questions, sample questions, just to be taken up. So when are we getting those questions? Because we would like to take them up in the assemblies and.
No. Don't coach.
No,
Please,
we're not
don't
coaching.
coach.
So that is not going to be a coaching.
No, what
Like,
I would recommend, Sabha ma'am, I have a small request. Aapko hum sample questions, we will surely share the questions with you. We would request you to make them as part of your routine assessment practices.
We know that.
Take the learning and please go ahead and do it. We will be more than happy. Wahan pe bhi, if you need any specific question, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to help you out.
We'll exactly do what you said, because last year when we had started, we had done just this. Shared a few questions, then created more. In fact, we had encouraged our children to create some more questions, just to make them think about it that way.
Good. And that's what all critical thinking is all about.
Yes, that is what we exactly plan to do, sir. Not in a class. We'll take it up in our assemblies, short assemblies, just maybe share 1 or 2 questions, discuss what is the question talking about, what is it that we're looking for, and that kind of a thing.
I would suggest you give the answer and ask them to prepare, make questions and submit back to you.
Good idea.
Yes, Praveen sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, Dr. Mansa, please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. I want to know that what is the exactly, as I'm a Hindi teacher, what is the role of Indian languages, जो भी हमारे Indian languages हैं, अगर इस तरह के, I think यहाँ पर ज्यादातर मैथ साइंस पर ही अप्लाई होगा. अगर हम स्किल की बात करें तो शायद वहां पर लैंग्वेजेस के रोल होंगे, बट अगर मैं हिंदी लैंग्वेज स्पेशली उसकी बात करूं तो वो कैसे एज एक गुड इनपुट हम दे सकते हैं?
देखिए मैम, जब तक कोई can I answer this question in half English,
please,
half
please.
Hindi? Okay.
Yeah.
जहां तक हो सकता है कि जो भाषा है, आप एक छोटा सा एक्सरसाइज कीजिए कि स्कूल में जिन बच्चों के इंग्लिश के स्कोर्स और मैथ्स एंड साइंस के स्कोर को कंपेयर करने की कोशिश कीजिए. ऑटोमेटिकली आपके डिपार्टमेंट की प्रामुख्यता आपको समझ में आ जाएगी.
ओके.
आप कुछ ये छोटा सा एक्सरसाइज करके मेरे को फोन कीजिए. वी विल हैव अ कन्वर्सेशन.
ओके सर, ओके सर.
सो छोटा सा खाली इतना ही कीजिए डॉक्टर मानसा, आप अपने 3 स्कोर उठाइए. मैथ्स,
हाँ, साइंस,
इंग्लिश
एंड साइंस.
ओके. यहाँ जितने मैथ्स के टीचर हैं वो सारे के सारे बोलेंगे जिनको इंग्लिश नहीं आता है उनको स्टेटमेंट प्रॉब्लम है.
ओके.
So comprehension, language helps you, and all these questions are going to be contextualized to Indian environment.
Yes, sir.
The work has just started.
Yes, sir.
Our team is actually working on contextualizing these questions. So don't worry, you will not get something out of syllabus. You will only get within Indian context सवाल.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
थैंक यू वेरी मच. अभी किसी ने मेरे को ये भी पूछा था, सर इसमें हिस्ट्री नहीं है, मैं हिस्ट्री नहीं दिखाई दे रहा, ज्योग्राफी. दिस इज नॉट अ सब्जेक्ट स्पेसिफिक. यहाँ पे खाली कॉम्पिटेंसीज की बात हो रही है और लैंग्वेज कॉम्पिटेंसीज रीडिंग के अंदर पर एसेस की जाती है.
नहीं, definitely, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
थैंक यू डॉक्टर मानसम. Yes, Sudha Singh, any question? You've unmuted yourself. Yes.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Senthil.
Yes.
I'm Sarpriya this side, and actually I'm traveling here. I need to ask one question to you. Like if we get the report of a comprehensive report of our schools, so how we will be identifying the gaps which we already know that gap is somewhere from grade 1 onwards till grade 8. Let us talk about English language, as you told, right? So how will we be able to identify those gaps and then work upon them?
Post this assessment, a report feedback will be presented to the school by us with few suggestions.
Okay, so you mean that the questions, they will be mapped according to the grade appropriate competencies. So that is how you will analyze the results, right? Okay, got it. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful session. I missed somewhere mapping of Safal and this PISA. I'll be asking for recording because I'm traveling and somewhere, connections are getting lost. So I hope Komal will share the competencies with us.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Sorry, competencies. I'm recording with us.
Sure. So it will be shared with you.
Thank
you very much. I think, Komal, can we close the session?
I think yes, sir.
Yeah, I think, can we just quickly show who Sonika is? Sonika, can you just say hi to everybody so that Sonika is the point person from our side who will be in touch and you will be hearing a lot from Sonika, supported by Komal and rest of us.
Hello,
Sonika,
everyone.
yeah,
hello, everyone.
That's Sonika, and if she calls, you can connect a face to the name Sonika, and she will be the point person from our side who will be calling you for your dates, for your concerns, for your all the things. She's our point person. Thank you, Sonika. Thank you, Komal. Thank you, Kavish. Kavish, you can close the session. Thank you very much.
I think thank you to all of you for taking interest. We are 22 minutes past the scheduled time, which again speaks about our commitment. We are excited and looking forward to be with all of you in this journey. And as I said at the start of the journey, if there's any friend, fellow educator who would be interested, please connect us together. We have the next session, I think, on the 5th or 7th. 7th. So we'll see you all on the 7th again for the next session.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Have a lovely evening. Bye.
Thank you, Senthil, sir. Thank you, Kavish. And thank you, Komal.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.